let me ask you something. Have you ever seen one single piece of news from a company you've probably never even heard of just completely send the stock market into a tailspin? Well, that is exactly the story we're going to unpack today. And trust me, it reveals a ton about the future of work itself.
So picture this. It's just a normal day on the market. And then suddenly, the share prices for these big, established companies, we're talking Thomson Reuters and Wolters Kluwer, major players in legal software and analysis, they just fall off a cliff. I mean, look at this chart. That's not a small dip. That is a serious, out-of-nowhere drop that had investors totally scrambling for answers.
So, the first question everyone's asking is, what happened? Was it some huge market crash, a massive corporate scandal? Nope, nothing like that. The real reason was, well, it was a lot more subtle, and honestly, way more revolutionary. It's a sign of this technological shockwave that's building right now, as we speak.
All right, so let's put on our detective hats. What in the world was the culprit behind this mysterious plunge?
And here's where the story gets really interesting. This entire market shockwave wasn't started by a household name like Apple or Microsoft. Nope. It all came from just one single announcement by a company that, honestly, most people had never heard of before.
And that company's name is Anthropic. Now, if you're deep in the tech world, you definitely know them. They're a huge competitor to firms like OpenAI, and they're laser-focused on building some of the most advanced AI on the planet. But for everybody else, they were pretty much flying under the radar. Well, until now.
And the specific piece of tech that caused all this chaos? It was Anthropic's brand new AI model, a system they named Claude.
So, what can this thing actually do that's got everyone so worked up? Well, its skills are incredibly broad and really, really powerful. We're talking about helping engineers write better code, sniffing out complex bugs, and even plugging right into everyday tools you use like PowerPoint. Just think of it like a super skilled digital coworker, and you can start to see why some folks might be getting a little nervous.
And that right there brings us to the absolute heart of this whole thing, the real reason the market got so spooked. It all comes down to two little words: knowledge work.
I mean, Anthropic couldn't have been more direct about it. They literally called Claude their most capable model for all enterprise and knowledge work. That wasn't some subtle hint. That was a direct shot across the bow, and you better believe investors heard it loud and clear. So what exactly is knowledge work? Well, it sounds complicated, but it's actually pretty simple. It's basically any job that happens in an office. You know, if your work is all about thinking, analyzing, and processing information, congratulations, you're a knowledge worker. And see, that's why this is so different. Past waves of automation hit manual labor, right? This one is aimed right at the folks who work with their minds.
So who's first in line? Well, lawyers and legal firms. Their entire job is built on sifting through mountains of text and legal history, which, you guessed it, is a perfect task for an advanced AI. That's why those legal tech stocks were the first ones to take a hit.
But of course, the ripple effect doesn't stop there. Next up, you've got accountants. I mean, they spend all day going through financial data, finding patterns, and applying all these complex rules. Again, it's a task that seems tailor-made for AI analysis.
And yeah, of course, analysts of every kind. We're talking financial analysts tracking the market, business analysts mapping out company strategy. Their core job is to turn a ton of information into actual insight. And hey, even creative jobs like media professionals are part of this whole knowledge work revolution. AI is already getting way better at drafting articles, summarizing reports, even making images. So when you add it all up, the potential scope is just massive. And that is what spooked the market.
Okay, so that's the panic. But let's all just take a breath for a second and do a quick reality check. Is this all just hype, or are there some real-world hurdles that AI still has to get over? You know, is it possible the market's overreacting a little?
This slide here really breaks down the tension perfectly. On one side, you have the market's big fear that AI is just going to automate everything overnight. But on the other side, you have today's reality. These tools, they're still pretty complex for most people to use. And more importantly, there's this giant unanswered legal question. Who gets blamed when the AI makes a huge mistake? You can't sue an AI, but you can definitely sue a human professional. And that is a major, major hurdle.
Which brings us to a much more optimistic way of looking at all this. As one analyst pointed out, if you look at history, the best use of technology has always been a man and a machine. The idea isn't replacement, it's collaboration. It's about using these incredible tools to make us smarter, faster, and just better at what we do. But this whole event forces us to zoom out and ask this really fundamental billion-dollar question about the entire future of the software industry itself. You see, historically, tech bubbles kind of follow this three-step pattern. First, you get immense hype. Then comes this narrowing, where the market desperately tries to pick the few big winners, and by extension, the losers. And finally, maybe, a burst. What happened with these stocks could be the very first sign that the AI market is entering that critical narrowing phase.
And this uncertainty goes way beyond just legal and coding software. I mean, take a company like Booking.com. Even its entire business model is being looked at differently. Why? Well, because it's totally plausible that in a few years, you won't go to a website to plan a trip. You'll just tell your AI assistant, hey, plan and book me a vacation to Italy.
And this, right here, is probably the most crucial takeaway of all. Despite how fast everything feels, we are still in the absolute infancy of this technology. We are in the first minute of the first day. We're just starting to figure out what these tools even are, let alone how they're going to reshape our world. Honestly, anyone who tells you they know how this all ends is just guessing.
Which leaves us with this final, massive question to chew on. In a world where AI can write its own apps, where people who have never written a line of code can suddenly build their own tools, what even is software anymore?